Hello, my name is Cooper, and I'm going to be joined in this presentation by my teammates Kara and Catherine. We're from the University of Minnesota, and we've recently completed usability testing for the City of St. Paul's Rent Ordinance website. We've prepared several slides to explain our findings, as well as make several recommendations. I hope you'll enjoy. We're going to begin this video presentation by going over some of the background information that led into our testing, before diving into our methods and results, before then going into a discussion of our findings, and then finally making several recommendations for how the city might be able to improve their rent ordinance website. Plans for our usability testing began to take shape after we received preliminary information from our client about the web page that we would be testing, as well as several goals that the city had for how to improve the site. You can see the web page itself on the slide behind me. It's the Rent Stabilization for Tenants and Renters page on the City of St. Paul's website. The main research question that we brought into our testing was what areas of the web page are causing difficulty or confusion for users, in the hopes that by addressing them, we could minimize the number of help calls that the city receives regarding the rent ordinance. Additionally, a second research question that we had was, why are users failing to find the complaints page? This issue was brought to our attention by the client before we began our testing. Now I'm going to pass things off to Kara and Catherine, who are going to discuss our methods and results.
We did a few things to collect data for our client, the City of St. Paul. First, we found participants and asked them a series of background questions. We then had them complete task scenarios and asked them post-task questions. And finally, we asked them a set of debriefing questions once the usability test was complete. Catherine and I will explain how we conducted each of these elements in the following slides. First, we found a group of 5 participants who fit our user demographic. It was most important to us that they were renters, and all 5 of them were. 3 of them lived in St. Paul, and 2 of them are from the surrounding areas. All but one of our participants were in their 30s, and the other one was in their 20s. To begin our usability test, we asked our participants a series of background questions which reflect their demographics, their nature of their computer use, their technological literacy, and the frequency of their use. Here you can see the questions that we asked them.
I will be talking a little bit about the methods that we use to go through our scenario tasks and post-task question with each of our 5 participants. The moderator provided a list of the scenario tasks to each participant. We had 8 scenario tasks in total. Working through each of them, the moderator asked the participant to read a task out loud and then proceed to work on it while thinking aloud during the process and moving their cursor on the screen to imitate an eye tracker so we could see where they were looking at any given time. When they were done with the task or felt they had gone as far as they could, they were to let the moderator know by saying, "I'm done," or something similar. In the meantime, the logger and the observer took notes, such as recording their behavior, comments, and actions. On completion of each scenario task, using the post-task question, the moderator asked the participant to rate the task from very easy to very difficult on a scale of 1 to 5. This was done at the end of each task while it was still fresh in their mind, as opposed to doing it at the end of all 8 tasks.
Finally, after completing the task scenarios, the moderator asked the participants a series of reflective questions about how the participant viewed the website. You can see here the debriefing interview questions that we asked the participants.
Now on to the results of the scenario tasks. I will talk about some of the issues encountered by our participant testers, their time on task, and the overall aggregate average rating the participants gave the tasks. Scenario task 1 was the first time the participants encountered the web page. The task asked them to find information that was located halfway down the web page. Due to the unfamiliarity with the site, the participants read each section more carefully in attempting to search for the information. In doing so, they tended to click on links that took them to other pages or PDF documents, such as the Rules and Processes 2023 page. Participant 2 tried to search on keywords in the documents and commented that the search was not very helpful. The average time on task was about 3 minutes, and the overall aggregate average rating that the participants gave this task was somewhat easy. Scenario tasks 2 and 3 asked the participants to find information that was located within the first paragraph of the page. 3 of the 5 participants were able to locate the information with relative ease. The average time on task was a little over 1 minute for both tasks. The overall average aggregate task rating was very easy to easy. Scenario task 4 asked the participants to locate information that is in the frequently asked questions section. Only participant 5 was able to find the complaint form information. Several participants mentioned wanting to appeal the rent increase. The average time on task was a little over 3 minutes. The overall aggregate average task rating was somewhat easy. Again, like tasks 2 and 3, scenario tasks 5 and 6 asked the participants to find information that was located in the first paragraph of the page and also in the what has changed in the ordinance section. 3 of 5 participants were able to locate the information with relative ease. The average time on task was 1.5 minutes, and the overall aggregate average task rating was somewhat easy. Scenario task 7 asked the participants to find information that is in the frequently asked questions section. Having become more familiar with the site, they were now going to that section more often to look for answers. 4 out of the 5 participants located the information. The average time on task was almost 2 minutes. The overall aggregate average rating was easy. Finally, scenario task 8 asked them to find information that is not contained on the web page. The participants clicked on various links and PDF documents but couldn't find the information. 2 of the 5 participants eventually said that they would use the contact us information. The other 3 eventually gave up looking for it. The average time on task was a little over 5 minutes, and the overall aggregate average rating the participants gave the task was very difficult.
Here you can see the responses of our participants to the debriefing interview questions. Many of the participants agree that the website has a nice look to it and that it is well designed. For question 2, participants reported that after spending some time on the web page, they discovered that it has much more nuanced information than they originally thought. Some other participants also noted that the language on the web page was inaccessible and difficult to understand at times. For question number 3, they perceived that the user base was renters and tenants, who are in fact the actual intended audience. For question number 4, when asked about how participants would use the website, they said that they would complete tasks very similar to the ones that we had them complete. And finally, for question number 5, their average difficulty rating on the entire website was just over 2. We will discuss the implications of all of our findings in the discussion section of this presentation.
In this next section, we're going to be discussing some of our findings, beginning with an overview of each of our tasks, before moving into an examination of how long it was taking our testers to complete those tasks. Then we'll go over our post-task question, where we would ask our testers to evaluate their performance. Finally, we'll talk about our debriefing interview, where we would ask questions of our testers about how the overall testing experience went. For our first scenario, users were tasked with finding the "What has changed" section of the FAQ. The majority of our testers missed that answer on the page and actually ended up finding it elsewhere by navigating away. It might have been because the part of the FAQ that featured that information is at the bottom, and so users would sort of scan the first few and then move on. Luckily, most of them considered it a success because they were able to find information about the exemption on another part of the site. Our second and third scenarios tasked our testers with finding information about acceptable increases in rent. This information is featured prominently on the web page in the About the Ordinance section, which is the very first section on the web page. Some of our testers were indeed able to find that information easily, while others ended up navigating away to find it elsewhere. Our fourth scenario tasked our testers with successfully finding the complaints form, following an unsanctioned rent increase of more than 3%. Unfortunately, only one of our testers was able to successfully make it to that page. The majority of our testers mistakenly believed that filing an appeal was actually the proper course of action in their case. We believe that's because filing an appeal is prominently featured at the top of the FAQ, whereas the complaints form is at the bottom. There's also an emotional connotation. Our testers were hesitant to file a complaint, whereas they believed that appeal was just more of a friendly option, and they were hesitant to jump right in to something so confrontational as a complaint. We even had one tester who, upon reading the task, moused over the complaints form and then said, "I'm only kidding," and then moved away, which, as someone moderating that test, was slightly frustrating. Our fifth and sixth scenarios tasked our testers with, once again, finding information on acceptable rates of rent increases. The majority of our testers in this case were able to successfully find the information at the top of the page. However, similar to the second and third tasks, some of our testers ended up navigating away rather than finding the information on the original page. For our seventh scenario, our testers were tasked with finding the Rights and Resources section of the FAQ. All but one of them was able to succeed at this task very easily, and by this point, in fact, most of our testers had become very comfortable navigating the site. For our eighth and final scenario, our testers were tasked with finding specific information about parking payments on the complaints form. As most of them weren't able to find the complaints form in the first place, it's not very surprising that actually none of the testers were able to complete this task. They looked all over the main page as well as in other pages that it connected to, but none of them was ever able to find it, and in fact many concluded that it simply wasn't information that was available anywhere on the site.
In analyzing the results from our usability tests, we found that what constituted the completion of a scenario task depended on if you were looking at the results from the participant's viewpoint or the observer's viewpoint. To capture the information from each viewpoint, we created two heat maps. The heat map from the participant's viewpoint indicates how easy or difficult they found the tasks. The heat map from the observer's viewpoint indicates whether the participant actually located the information that was requested. For example, Scenario Task 4 requested the participant to locate the complaint form. The participants who thought the appeals process was the way to go rated this task as being relatively easy to complete. However, from the observer's viewpoint, not locating the complaint form or not seeking to contact anyone resulted in an unable to complete the task as described in the rubric used. In terms of time on task, we noticed an improvement in average time to complete from, say, task 1 to task 3. Task 1 probably took the longest since it was the first time that they were seeing the web page. Task 2 and 3 had similar answers, so the improvement is not surprising. Then task 4 asked for new information different from tasks 1 to 3, and therefore the average time spiked up a little bit again. Task 5 and 6 also required the participant to find information that was available at the very top of the page, so those average completion times were similar to tasks 2 and 3, as participants were becoming more familiar with the web page. Task 7's answer was in the frequently asked questions section a little further down the page, so it took a little longer than task 5 and 6. And finally, task 8's answer did not exist on the page at all. So the participants spent more time trying to locate an answer that did not exist. Some eventually opting to use the contact us information, others just giving up. The results seem to indicate that familiarity with the site improves times. However, with no prior knowledge of the site, it seems a bit difficult to navigate and find the answers one needs.
Through our debriefing interview, we found that the web page and our client are already successful in a few areas. The web page has a very sophisticated appearance, and our client has a pretty clear vision of the intended audience as well as the tasks they might try to complete on the web page. And while the web page has extensive helpful information on a clean interface, the issue lies in the way the information is distributed. The participants expressed that a lot of the information was not where they expected it to be, and some of the information was difficult to understand. The only way that the site was easy to navigate was with practice, which shows that first-time users may struggle to find what they need.
We're now going to begin discussing our recommendations for how best to improve the site, starting with the complaints and appeals sections. Now, as I said before, only one of our testers was able to successfully make it to the complaints form. And we feel like moving information that is placed on the complaints form to the main page would be a great way to begin improving it, because a lot of what explains why you would want to file a complaint is on the complaints form itself. And so that information needs to be on the main page so that users will see it, recognize their situation, and then act accordingly. We also think that potentially creating a sort of a side-by-side graphic where users can see when they need to file an appeal versus when they need to file a complaint would go a long way towards minimizing the number of users who mistake the complaints form and the appeals form for what they need to be doing. Another recommendation we have regarding information that's found on the complaints form is moving the information on ordinance-related fees from the complaints form to the main page, because our final scenario task dealt with parking prices, and that information is found on the complaint form and nowhere else, and none of our users were able to find it there. So we think that simply creating a section that includes all of those fees on the main page would be an excellent improvement.
I will now talk about two of the recommendations that our team has come up with for improving the web page. The first is relocating the Rules and Processes 2023 page link, and the second is the information structure. If the aim is for the users to obtain high-level information on the rent stabilization for renters and tenants page, and pages like the Rules and Processes 2023 page are for more detailed information, then we would recommend moving that link further down the page. The Rules page seems to contain more detailed legal information, more detail than the average person is looking for. Therefore, when they come across that link in the first paragraph, they click on it and veer off to that page. They're getting information that they don't quite understand, when the answer they were looking for was further down on the rent stabilization page all along. This results in users who are exasperated, who then just pick up the phone and call or give up on following up on their rights. The second recommendation is information structure. In terms of the organization of data amongst the various pages, some repetition is okay, but in this case, it may be creating redundancy and some confusion. The pages need to be organized in such a manner so that key pieces of information are not needlessly repeated. Also, our participants sometimes got lost amongst the pages after clicking on various links, almost as if they were going around in circles. This would be alleviated by organizing the information in a hierarchical method between the various pages.
From our usability test, we and our participants found that it is often very difficult to remember which page we are on. Many of the related pages have the same graphics and themes throughout, which can make it very difficult to know when a user is navigating to or from a web page. So in order to add some clarity to the web page, we suggest that the title of the page be added to the current sticky menu. A sticky menu is a menu that remains in a fixed location on the user's screen even as they begin to scroll. And the Rent Stabilization Ordinance page already has one of these menus located at the top of the screen, which you can see on the slide behind me. We recommend that the title of this page be added to this existing menu or in a nearby fixed location. This will help users to recognize which page they are on without having to scroll to the top of the page to find it.
Another recommendation that we have is making some small changes to the look of the very top of the web page. One of the questions our client had was, does the graphic serve any real function? And we feel that it doesn't, and the unused space forces the information downwards, below the bottom of the screen in some users' cases. We had one tester in particular who used the navigation tools at the very top to navigate the entire city website, every time they began a task simply because they didn't understand that they could scroll down. We've included an image of the Wikipedia article for St. Paul, which has a nice drop-down menu on the side that really shows users that the information they're looking for is just down below, and all they need to do is scroll. We think that including something like that on the side, particularly in that unused space, would be a great way to indicate to users that all they need to do is scroll down to get the answers that they're looking for.
One of the initial concerns of our client was the use of accessible language on their web page. And we know from our debriefing interview responses that the language on the webpage was a bit confusing for our participants. And we understand the necessity to use legal and objective language on the webpage, and therefore do not necessarily suggest that phrasing be altered. However, we do suggest that the language use simple sentence structures so as not to confuse our users who might be unfamiliar with some of the more nuanced syntax of the English language. For example, instead of stating that tenants will have 45 days from the date of the city's determination on the exception request to file an appeal, the website could read, if the city approves the exception request, tenants will have 45 days to submit an appeal. This keeps some of the important jargon of the website in place, but removes the long prepositional phrase and the confusing use of an attributive noun phrase.
Thank you for watching our presentation. We hope you've enjoyed it. Just to summarize a few of our points, we found that testers really responded well to the website overall. Aesthetically, they found it pleasing, and functionally, they enjoyed clicking buttons and tabs on the FAQ and responded well to the information that they were able to find. However, there was some information they were not able to find. We hope we've offered some good recommendations on how to solve those problems. And once again, thank you for watching. Have a nice day.